And every single person is still coping and justifying this fucking behavior. This is not a small politician lie. This is a flat out fucking diversion, lying to the face of his constituents, saying, I have no idea what this is, and then stepping into office and literally executing the plan to a T. We're 2 months in and we're at 40%. You think we're not gonna get there?
Yeah.
All right, guys, got Brodie back on the show. This time, we're going to talk politics. Talking politics, babe. I'm pumped. Yeah, last time was business, but this time I'd love to hear your perspective on how the presidency's been going so far, in your opinion.
Yeah, so realistically right now, I'm super worried about how the Trump administration is handling things. Like, it's been absolute chaos, like total shock and awe. They're literally just dismantling so many things at once. And there's a lot of concerns that I have, right? Number one, I'm concerned about the fact that they're dismantling so many government agencies. Number two, I'm concerned about like where they're putting their focus, right? It's like all I see Trump doing is literally just like playing like a big dick contest with Canada and a ton of other places and changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico, trying to call Canada the 51st state, saying we're taking Greenland. And it's like, dude, like, where is your head at? Like, get it in the fucking game. We have actual issues to focus on. And it is not the name of the Gulf of Mexico, right? Like, that is a huge issue. And then kind of a more like sinister concern that I have is a lot of the Christian nationalist undertones that are coming up, and that like a lot of this shock and awe stuff that he's doing and like these executive orders that he's signing, he knows he's not going to be able to push through Congress. He knows they're going to fight back. And so it's like, it comes off as a diversion for like some other play that he's making. And that concerns me because I don't know what that is yet.
Yeah. Which executive orders specifically concern you, I guess?
Well, you look at a ton of the stuff that he's done. I mean, one of the biggest executive orders that Trump has signed that I had a problem with was pardoning all the January 6th rioters, right? And it's like, dude, these were legitimate criminals. The January 6th ordeal was not something to be taken lightly. You literally had your supporters breaking into the Capitol, hurting cops, storming all sorts of government buildings. It's a fucking issue. Like, objectively, that should never be happening. And it's getting justified. And you look at what's happened after all of those people got pardoned. Dude, tons of them are getting arrested for violent crimes, DUIs. Like, they're just flat out fucking scumbag criminals. And he pardoned all of them, cop killers. Like, it's such a big issue, and the right literally brushes it under the rug like it's no big deal. And I'm like, guys, these are criminals. And he just pardoned all of them, not some of them. He didn't even bother looking at, hey, maybe there was a portion of them that were just like, they're protesting and like not that, you know, maybe it wasn't that big of an offense, right? Let's actually look at it. No, just flat out, they're all good to go. And we're seeing the impacts of that. They literally came right back out and started committing crimes. Because guess what? That's what fucking criminals do.
Do you think any of the J6ers should have been pardoned?
I don't know how to answer the question of, do I think some of the J6ers should have been pardoned? Because the reality is there were a lot of people there. And it's like, looking at the percentage of them that maybe would have done something super wrong, like break into the building or actually attack a cop, like it was a chaotic fucking riot. You know what I mean? I don't know how to dissect who was doing super wrong stuff, kind of wrong stuff, like who was not doing that wrong. And so because you cannot make those discernments, probably the best move is to just flat not do it. You know what I mean? Or maybe let those people bring evidence to a case and let it play out in court. Like, maybe that, like, hey, we're going to actually look at this case by case and see if they can come up with any evidence. But I don't know. That's such a hard one.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you kind of have to bucket those people and say this was a group crime.
A lot of variables in that one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, I don't know how you would start to break that down.
Yeah.
You know, it's a fucking riot of people.
What do you think of Elon Musk's involvement with the Trump campaign so far?
Dude, I'm super concerned with what Elon's doing. Like, if you would have asked me a few years ago, like, I would have championed Elon as like a guy who put all his money on the line to build companies that really helped the future of humanity. You know what I mean? He's working on big, noble problems. But the reality is, in the last couple of years, Elon has slipped into someone who desires absolute power. And it's happening in such plain sight, you know, and he's just not the guy that he says he is, right? He championed himself as, you know, the the guy who cares about free speech and bought X to protect free speech.
Right.
But the reality is he didn't do that. Anything that is said bad about Elon on X.
Searching for the perfect job can be overwhelming. You know it's out there, you just don't know how to find it. The good news, you don't have to do it alone.
Shout out to today's sponsor, Specialized Recruiting Group.
Specialized Recruiting Group is here to help. Personalized job search support tailored to your skills and needs. They connect job seekers with contract and full-time roles. The best part is that it's completely free for job seekers.
Specialized Recruiting Group is ready to find the talent you need. Go to srgpros.com, see how our recruitment specialists with a deep understanding of experience and expertise you need can find the right fit for your business. After all, you deserve to see the best candidates possible, both active and passive.
Visit srgpros.com today to start your job search. If you don't see the right job listed, SRG also recruits for confidential roles. Just call a local office to learn more. Take the next step in your career today at srgpros.com.
It will get censored. Anything that is said about anything that has to do with trans ideology, he will censor it. Right. And so it's like, if you're a free speech absolutist, like you say that you are, you can't be censoring those things. The New York Times also did this like little sting operation where basically they created a bunch of new X accounts and they used it with all different IP addresses across the country. And when you make this was like leading up to the election, when you made a new account on X, literally you would be getting pummeled with conservative content.
Yeah.
And the first accounts that you would see to follow, Trump, Elon, right? And so like, that's not direct censorship, but you are definitely hurting the cattle there in a way that is unethical and antithetical to free speech absolutism, in my opinion. You know, and so I have huge concerns with him not being the guy that he says he is, and nobody really caring to assess if he is. They just take it at face value.
Have any of his investigations opened your eyes into corruption?
So when you look at Doge as an idea and what they're doing, it's like, you don't have to think that there's no government waste to oppose Doge. Obviously, there's huge government waste and inefficiency in spending. And I think that if you were to just approach it from that fact, which is what a lot of people think they're doing, then yeah, like looking to optimize inefficiency inside of government spending is a great idea.
Yeah.
But that's not what's happening here. They're toppling entire departments and creating huge chaos inside of the way that the country functions. I mean, we had Social Security, Medicare, free lunches, all on pause because they just shut everything down. And like, he's treating it like a company, which like in some ways you can do, but in some ways you have to be way more careful and work from within the system because people's lives are at stake.
Yep.
Like, dude, I grew up on free lunches. Imagine if for a week or a week and a half or whatever it was, I went to school and they were like, you can't have lunch. Like that is fucked.
Yeah.
That's fucked up, right? And that's a minor example. When you look at Social Security and Medicare, that's people's health. It's how they pay their bills. And he's like, sorry, like we made a mistake. It's like, dude, you can't be that reckless with the funds that people need.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not a company that you can just strip down and break down for parts and rebuild it. Right. Like this is a humanitarian problem that you are committing. And that really fucking rubs me the wrong way. It is hurting the lives of so many people, and it's just recklessness. And because I take that position, that does not mean that I oppose assessing government efficiency, right? I think that that's a good idea, but there's just because you have a good idea doesn't mean that you can't take the wrong way to try to, reach that idea or goal.
Right.
And this is the absolute worst way to get it done.
The Social Security stats he posted, if those numbers are true, that is concerning.
Here's the thing about the numbers that they report. Let me start that clip over. So here's the thing about the numbers that Doge is reporting. Time and time again, he has been caught way over reporting numbers. He literally, I can't remember what it was, but he reported one of their findings as $9 billion and it ended up being 9 million.
Wow.
And he was like, sorry, it made like an error. He's like, we're going to make mistakes. And it's like, dude, the biggest problem with Elon is that he doesn't understand the severity of putting out misinformation to the platform of fucking 50 million people or whatever he has. That is a problem because people take that information, and we've talked about this before, and they believe it.
Yeah.
And they think, you know what? The government's wasting fucking $10 billion on condoms for fucking Gaza or whatever they said it was. You know what I mean? And it's just like, dude, this is not the case. And then Trump comes in and he's like, Doge is finding so much fraud. They're finding some inefficiencies. They're over-reporting what those inefficiencies are, and there hasn't been any actual fraud found.
Yeah.
And so none of them are careful with the words that they use, and they don't care about the consequence of platforming misinformation. And that is a huge fucking problem. It creates hysteria in the public. It creates divide in the American people. And there's a reason that everybody fucking hates each other right now, and it is because our leaders lie, or, at worst, they flat out lie. And at best, they're reckless with their words and make mistakes.
I definitely agree with that. What about DEI? What did you think of Trump? He signed an executive order for that one, right?
Yeah. So look, here's what I think about Trump coming in and just like wiping all DEI initiatives. It's like, people have this idea that DEI sits in opposition to like a merit-based system. And it's just not that simple, right? And like, when you look at it on paper and you think at like first principle, it's like, yeah, a merit-based system seems to make the most sense. We're entrepreneurs. We want the best talent in there. But the reality is it just isn't coming down to that all the time. And what I mean by that is there are, when you're talking about big positions at companies or in government organizations, there are a slew of candidates, all with equal skill and qualifications, right? And so to think that just because they chose a black person, that person was less qualified than some white person is ridiculous, right? And like, I really dislike that. And so here's the other thing too. When you actually look at there's huge data done by McKinsey and Deloitte on the impacts of DEI and the positive outcomes that it has inside of teams. Companies who have serious DEI initiatives outperform sales and profit than companies who don't.
Really?
Companies who have DEI initiatives, when they look at the problem-solving abilities of their teams, they make I think it was like somewhere between like 60 and 80% less errors.
Wow.
Than companies that don't have diversity. And so there clearly is a value in having team members with different insights from diverse cultures. Like, imagine if you were trying to solve a problem and everybody you're on your team came from the exact same background as you, the exact same type of environment as you. You guys wouldn't have a lot of really robust context to bring in counterintuitive ideas to the way that you're thinking. You can make sense of the fact that diverse teams and cultures produce great outcomes. And people just they don't actually take the time to think about what this means.
Yeah.
Right? They just think, oh, DEI, you're just choosing bad people because they have a disability or because of the color of their skin. And that's just not the fucking case. And there are instances of that have happened. Like, you saw some pretty crazy stuff in like some of the FAA DEI policies, but the reality is Trump came in and was blaming Biden for all of that. That policy existed throughout Trump's entire first term. And it's like, oh, now you care about it, or you just weren't paying attention then? It's like, dude, come on, this is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, the example that blew up on social media was the firefighters in LA.
And so tell me how that one broke down again.
I think the chief of the LA fire department was some girl, or I don't exactly remember, but they blamed it on DEI.
For the
California
fires. And so one more piece of context, was there any reason to believe that she was less qualified than someone else?
I think they had an initiative for DEI within the fire department, but I don't know the exact percentages.
Okay, and so, yes, let's look at this example of the Trump administration blamed the California wildfires on DEI initiatives because there was a female fire chief at the head of that, right? And so that is just not enough data, right? You're making the assumption that because she was a woman and they also had DEI initiatives, she was less qualified than some man that applied for the job.
Right.
And that is not a logical deduction, right? She could have been the most qualified fucking person and been a woman, right? And the DEI thing could have not fucking mattered at all, right? And you don't have the answer to that. But people literally take the position that because she's a woman, she must have been less qualified than a man, and the DEI policy is to blame, and therefore all of these fires happened because of that, right? You're connecting dots that don't have the ability to connect, and then it creates hysteria everywhere. And I'm so fucking tired of seeing that. And it's like, we can't expect the American people to have the time to research all of these things and literally fact check our public officials who we should be able to trust that that's their job. And the fact that they will just throw out blatant lies or uninformed statements is beyond me. It is your job and your responsibility as a leader of the country, as a member of government who is in the public eye, to put out information that is accurate to the best of your knowledge. And we don't even have to know the fucking details to see that they made a logical error in how they're assessing that. You told me that in 2 seconds and I was like, okay, here's the problem, right? It is not that fucking hard. These politicians should be doing their goddamn job and actually using their fucking brains before they open their mouth and speak to the American public. It's asinine.
Yeah, Twitter makes it very easy to get messages out there.
That's the thing, dude. Like it is like social media has made it so easy to spread misinformation. And it's one thing when you have some random fringe creator spreading conspiracy theories, and maybe it's getting traction with the algorithm, maybe it's not, right? But when you have it coming from the top down, when you have it coming from Elon Musk, the number one person that is shown to you all the fucking time, when he is aggressively spreading misinformation on the platform, he has to be held accountable. Someone has to take responsibility for that. It is a social responsibility to put out accurate information.
Yeah.
Literally, like 3 weeks ago, there was some sort of situation in the UK where some people broke into something and he posted an image and said that like, hey, these people stormed this building and whatever. The image was from the Dark Knight movie. And he was like, oh, my bad.
That's crazy.
It wasn't even like an AI image, which he's been caught doing like 4 or 5 times, maybe more. But this was an image from a fucking movie. He saw it somewhere else, and then he fucking pushed it to tens of millions of followers. That is irresponsible, it's unethical, and it has real world impacts.
I wasn't a fan of him faking his video game skills. Did you see that one?
Dude, yes. Okay, so I'm not sure how many people have known this, but right, like Elon Musk was claiming to be one of the top 5 or top 3 Diablo 4 players in the world, right? And then he was doing it with another game. And the reality is like, look, I played a lot of Diablo 4 when it came out. I love Blizzard games. I used to game a lot.
Yeah.
I said, hey, I'm going to pick up Diablo 4 for a while. And so I knew what it took to get to the point that he was just from a gear and time perspective. And it's like, there's no way this guy has the time to do that. And maybe he had someone playing it and he knows how to play the game and he's still pretty good. Honestly, the game's not very hard. So if he had the gear and the character, it wouldn't be fucking hard to do what he did. But the reality is he was lying about something there because it wasn't possible that he put in that amount of time, got all that gear, right? And number 2, like all real gamers watched him play that other game that he was also claiming to be like one of the fucking best in the world at. And they're like, this guy has no idea what he's doing, right? And so this is something so small and so stupid. There's absolutely no reason for the richest man in the fucking world, who is now basically at least 50% running the government, maybe more, to be making these kinds of lies, right? And so we're supposed to think that this guy is stable and capable of running the fucking country and doing all of these things when he's that fucking insecure, when he needs to make ridiculous lies about himself over a fucking video game. It's like, this is crazy. This is the kind of shit we would attribute to some rando who works at fucking Arby's. And it's like, no, this is the richest guy in the world, also running the country and dismantling tons of fucking organizations, taking thousands of people's jobs and livelihoods away from them. And he's out here lying about fucking video games.
Yeah.
It's like, how are we supposed to think that that's a good idea? You can't tell me that's a good fucking idea. You have to question where his brain is at, if he's fucking sane right now, and if he's going to be able to get the job done.
I will say, if you lie about something like that, what stops you from lying about bigger problems, you know?
Totally. There's no reason to do it.
Yeah. Does Project 2025 concern you at all? They were denying that it was going to happen when they were running.
So, all right. So I have been screaming from the rooftop since probably the beginning of 2024 that Project 2025 was a huge issue. And so if listeners don't know what it is right now, this is an extreme right-wing Christian manifesto that came out of like a far-right think tank called the Heritage Foundation. It is basically a really long list of policy proposals to turn America into a Christian nation and revert us back to a more traditional time, right? And the first time I read it, I thought this is one of the craziest fucking things that I've ever read. But I knew that a lot of the people who contributed to creating that were friends of Trump's. They had donated to Trump. And then you had Trump throughout the entire campaign saying, I have no idea what this thing is. I haven't even looked at it. But then he said, oh, I looked at it. And like some of this stuff was like appalling.
Yeah.
And he tried to separate himself from it as much as possible leading up to the election. After the election, he took tons of people from the Heritage Foundation who contributed to Project 2025, and he put them on his fucking staff. And then also, in 2 months, Trump has either initiated is working on or finished 40% of the initiatives in Project 2025.
Wow.
This is not a fucking coincidence. 40% is not a fucking coincidence, and every single person is still coping and justifying this fucking behavior. This is not a small politician lie. This is a flat out fucking diversion, lying to the face of his constituents, saying, I have no idea what this is, and then stepping into office and literally executing the plan to a T. We're 2 months in and we're at 40%. You think we're not going to get there?
Damn.
That's not reasonable to believe. And it's also not reasonable to believe that he knew nothing about it. And if you think he didn't, I think you're a fucking moron.
Was Christian nationalism part of Project 2025?
It's the whole purpose of Project 2025 is to revert everything back to like a more traditional time where you have white Christian Americans really being like the focal point of America. And literally every single policy within there has Christian nationalist undertones. And you know my concern with Christianity and religion as a whole. But when you start talking about Christian nationalism, this is on a whole different level of severity.
Yeah.
These are religious extremists. These are not good people. They're not logical people. They are willing to create harm for others to push their initiatives forward. This is the worst type of Christianity, okay? This is not, and I repeat, this is not the principles that this country was founded on. The people and the men who founded this country set it up the way that they did for a reason, because they wanted to keep religion out of schools and out of politics. And they wanted to keep freedom of religion here because we are a diverse country. It's a melting pot. Like, America's built on fucking immigrants.
Yeah.
And they did that because, dude, the reality is religious thinking sits in opposition to critical thinking. And you cannot be pushing a national Christian agenda into our schools, into our politics, because you are going to lose the ability to think critically and make rational decisions, because everything is going to be based on God and faith in whatever the most extreme version of Christianity has to offer.
I agree with that, but I also think public schools are not teaching critical thinking at the moment in general. I mean, you majored in psych, so it's a little different for you.
So I'm willing to grant that public schools are not optimized and that they could be a lot better, right? And this is kind of like we were talking about with Doge, and we'll talk about with like Maha, but it's like you want to optimize how we're teaching kids and what we're teaching them and set them up for life better. I think that that's a great fucking message and mission, right? But the way to not do it is to install Christian fucking lessons in the school.
Yeah, I agree with
right? And so it's another one of these things where we have like a pretty good idea, and our road there doesn't even lead there. It leads somewhere completely different and fucked up. But people then, and the right does this so bad. I see just like normal conservative constituents doing this all the time. They make huge cognitive and logical errors. They think that, oh, because an idea is good, the person who came up with it or the plan that follows it is also good. And we can very easily break that down. Like, you don't have to think very hard to figure out how a good idea can go bad.
Yeah.
Right? It's not that fucking hard, but they don't do it. They refuse to just think past the first level. And it blows me away, man. Like, this is the biggest, most interesting fucking social experiment that has ever happened in the history of humanity. And while like the only way that I can even tolerate it is by finding some fucking humor in it, it's concerning.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we had 77 million Americans vote for Trump.
Wow.
77 million people failed to assess the situation. Right? Because when you assess the situation, there's only two positions that you can take. You could vote for Trump because you thought he was going to do good in the economy.
Yep.
Which wasn't that great of a bet anyways. But you could say, hey, I'm a business guy. I'm a fiscal conservative. I really like money. But the reality is that would be fine in a different like Republican candidate. But the cost to taking that position with Trump is a humanitarian crisis where you have ICE and his administration literally tearing families apart, throwing them out of the country. Even some people who are here seeking asylum, refugees, here legally, they're out there abusing and harassing American citizens, right? And so it's like saying, hey, I love money in this instance means I'm down to hurt people. And it wasn't always that way, but now it is.
Yeah.
And so that's one reason that you could do it. Another reason that you would vote for Trump is because you did think that there were huge immigration issues and whatever. And like, look, immigration is a problem to be solved. And honestly, if like some very pragmatic people sat down for 6 months, they could probably do it, And we talked about this last time, leading up to the last election, there was a great bipartisan immigration bill on the table, and the Border Patrol supported it. Tons of Democrats and Republicans supported it, and Trump killed it so that he could run on it.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, one, do you really think that guy's a good guy and actually cares about immigration? Number two, it's like, we can see that this isn't that hard of a problem to solve. And again, we have a problem that needs addressed, but we're going about it the wrong way. We're building fucking detention centers in Guantanamo Bay. We're leasing land in Texas to fucking lock families up. There's videos out there of kids who have been stripped away from their families, or their families got stripped away from them and they ended up orphans, just being like huddled into fucking rooms and centers. And you can literally watch the Border Patrol agents crying. I mean,
Yes.
It is so fucking hard to watch. And like, this is like, how can you look at that and think this is a good idea? Like, I don't care what happens to me. I am not down to rip thousands of families apart.
Yeah.
Kill me. I'll die. Like, I'll shoot myself in the head right now if you'll save 1,000 families from being ripped apart from each other.
Wow.
Like, actually. And people are supporting it every fucking day, and that blows me away.
Didn't Obama deport a lot of people though?
Dude, Obama deported a lot of people.
I think even more than Trump, right?
I'm not for sure, but I do think that Obama deported a lot of people, and potentially more than Trump, right? And see, this is one of those things. It's like, people will look at me and say, okay, this guy's liberal, he votes Democrat, he has a ton of these things. That doesn't mean that I agree with every action that has been taken by a Democrat,
Right.
right? Like, these things are way more nuanced. But what's so interesting is that the right does do that, right? They're like, I'm a Republican, I agree with every fucking policy, regardless of how fucked up it is.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, wait, guys, like, are you sure? And they're like, yep, 100%, and fuck you. And I'm like, oh God, this is fucking scary. And it's because this country inside of a political container used to think and look at policy and assess situations. And, in 2016, when the Trump circus started, he was a demagogue, right? And he radicalized everyone into just believing what he wants, right? And this is not good. This is not good politics, right? And it has divided the country, and it has hurt the country. And you have so many people who are refusing to actually assess situations, no matter the cost. They don't care if it's lives. They don't care if it's money. They don't care if it's anything. Like, hey, oh, you love fucking money? Trump's murdering the economy right now, shitting on it. It's going terribly, right? And they're like, nah, dude, he's gonna make it. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Great economy, best economy ever. They're just literally parroting what he says. And it's like, no, you can see right now that's not the case. You can also see that there were dozens of economic markers that in totality Biden beat Trump on, right? Like, the notion that Trump's economy was just so much better than Biden's just flat out isn't true. It just flat out isn't true. And all you have to do is literally look at the metrics that contribute to and how we assess an economy and put them side by side. Because the reality is, me telling you this, you're not going to believe me, but go fucking look at it.
Yeah.
If you don't believe it, then you're fucked in the head.
The right always brings up the egg prices and the gas prices.
Dude, egg prices and gas prices, like, I'm so bad for that. Like, we have money, like, we're kind of detached from that. Like,
Yeah.
I haven't known what gas costs in fucking 8 years. You know what I mean? Or eggs. But it's been a topic lately since Trump came in, and both those things are way up.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll have to find those metrics and throw them up on screen.
Yeah, like, dude, like, look, right now, Trump is crushing the economy. Every single thing that he's doing has been pushing it further and further down. Like, look, we love crypto.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be bull market time right now. We're supposed to be banging right now, making money right now. And the thing's getting fucking suffocated. Why? Because there is global uncertainty with what wild move Trump is going to take. And the thing is, too, he's not just hurting the economy. He's letting his buddies fucking rip the bag out of everyday Americans, right? Like, okay, he used tariffs as a threat to Canada and Mexico. What happened that day and the next day? Market drops 30%. You think his fucking billionaire friends didn't clean house on that? You know they did. And they just ripped money out of everyday Americans' hands. That is a huge fucking problem. Not only is he hurting the economy, but he's giving the money to his fucking homies.
I wasn't a fan of the Trump coin.
Dude, the Trump coin was an absolute debacle. I can't even believe that happened, dude. Like, look, we exist in a space. We see shit coins get pumped. People get rug pulled. We're pretty desensitized to it, right? Like, we know that happens. It's wrong, whatever. But the president of the United States launched a coin and fucking pumped it harder than any of these other shitcoins have ever gone because of who he is. And it got rug pulled. The thing fucking tanked. I saw so many videos of Trump voters being like, I lost my entire fucking life savings on this because I believed in Donald Trump and where he was taking that. That is fucked up, because I'm never justifying like shitcoins being built and, you know, rugs being pulled. But the reality is, when it happens around like our community, we all know the game that we're playing. We're all completely aware of the fact that this shit's sketchy, and there's a probability of us getting fucking tanked and it going to zero. When you do it to the American public, you have people entering crypto for the first time ever, which is a dangerous space. And on the shitcoin space, meme coin space, which is even worse, and you know this, and then you just fucking yank it from all of them. Those people were not equipped to make that decision. But because they trusted Trump, because Trump is the fucking hero right now, they did it, and they literally got fucking murked.
It's launching a lot of products, man. Shoes, you got the coins, you know, merch.
Yeah, and so look, I have a problem with like how Trump has been launching Trump coin, his merch, the fucking physical coins that he sold, even how he does events at Mar-a-Lago, because it's like, look, as a marketer, on one hand, I can expect being scrappy and taking a grassroots approach to raising funds. Like, the guy knows how to fucking market and sell. Like, cool. In a business vacuum, sick, right? But when you have the president of the United States with as much influence as he has doing it, there's a conflict of interest there. There's a problem, right? And the right will be super quick to justify that type of behavior, right? But then they will literally shit on every politician that has made a bunch of money, and so would I, through insider trading and whatever, Nancy Pelosi, her husband, like a bunch of them, right? But the reality is, Trump is doing the same type of thing. Not that that is as bad as insider trading, but he's definitely letting his fucking boys rip cash on insider trading when he's fucking throwing tariffs at Canada and Mexico. And so it's like, you can't have it both ways. If you want to criticize unethical behavior, you have to do it to your fucking daddy as well. Like, you have to do it. Otherwise, you literally do not qualify to speak on any of this. If you have zero intellectual integrity and you will literally be a fucking hypocrite in how you think about things, get fucked. Like, you have no place actually participating in political discourse. I'm so done with it. Like, I'm so tired of seeing what I do on social media, seeing what I do out in public, people talking about this shit. Like, if you're not going to take the time to fucking learn, don't show up. It's ridiculous, dude. It's like, would you ever show up to a fucking sporting event to play a game when you've never played it in your life? No, but because it's politics, people will do it. And they also think that we should fucking respect people's political beliefs for the sake of respecting their political beliefs. And I do not agree with that anymore. It's a nice fucking idea, but the American political system has turned into a place where the ideas on the right are morally reprehensible and they cost people their lives. And I am now no longer willing to grant that we should fucking respect someone's beliefs for the sake of doing so. Your beliefs are fucked and they cause problems and they hurt people. And there's absolutely no reason that I should respect that. The only thing that I'm going to do is attack that. The only thing I'm going to do is stand up for people who cannot stand up for themselves. It's ridiculous. I'm fucking tired.
I think the Democratic Party needs that right now, because it doesn't seem like you guys have figureheads.
No, dude, there's a huge problem with the Democratic Party right now, and there's a huge reason that they lost the election. And that problem is, number one, there are very few fucking warriors. Like, some of the only warriors you have in Congress and in the actual government, AOC, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, they're beasts. They will go hard, but they're the only ones. We're talking about hundreds of people who could be going as hard as they do. And then in the independent media space, you've got a bunch of great people: Destiny, David Pakman, Kyle Kulinski from Secular Talk, Cenk Uygur and TYT. They've been a little off lately, but you've got a lot of great people there, but they're not organized the way that the right is. One of the reasons that Trump won the election is because after he lost 2020, guess what? Tons of money poured into the Daily Wire. They got so organized, so focused. And Ben Shapiro started platforming tons of right-wing people. You look at the top podcasts in the world, dude, like 6 or 7 of the top 25 podcasts are coming out of the Daily Wire.
Yeah.
They are literally a fucking machine. And the left doesn't have that. They need that independent media. They need that organization. They need to get on the same fucking page, and they need to stop fighting with each other, right? Like, part of the problem with the left is you've got like some really far left stuff that's like pretty wacky, and just like, it's like fine if you want to like respect what people are doing and like even fight for like what they want to do. Like, I love that. Right. But like, you guys just can't fight with each other. You're like the extreme far left is impossible to please, right? Like the most pragmatic place to sit on the political spectrum is slightly left of center.
Yeah.
Like that is the most pragmatic place to sit. And the Democratic Party itself has to stop fighting. They have to get organized and they need more fucking warriors. Like if there were more AOCs, Elizabeth Warrens and Bernie Sanders in the Democratic Party, they would be doing a lot better. And then on the independent media side, if there were more fucking destinies out there, we would be doing way better. And that's why I've started speaking up, because I'm like, I don't know who else is going to fucking do this. Like I spend time researching this shit all the fuck every night for the last fucking 2 years because I've been concerned for like the world that my two sons are growing up in.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, I've always existed in the online business world and like been able to influence in a little small community, but like I wasn't ready to tackle politics and like political discourse, but I don't know who else is going to do it. And like, we all need to get organized and we need to start fighting because shit's getting bad fast.
Yeah.
And they need warriors out there who are willing to play the game and go to war and fucking fight that shit out.
I'll say Daily Wire is losing relevance. I would be more worried about Turning Point if I was on the left.
Who's on Turning Point?
Charlie Kirk. They got a behemoth of a company now. They're going to college camp. So brilliant marketing strategy. You got to get going to college campuses, making college kids look like idiots.
Yep.
Goes viral every time.
Yeah, look, as a marketer, Charlie Kirk is really talented. He's also really well-spoken and pretty fucking educated. And he's so great in these conversations because he's just been ripping. I mean, he's probably ripped like tens of thousands of college students apart.
Yeah.
Right now, I haven't really checked out a ton of clips of him getting in the room with someone who's like smart. Like I would like to see him and Destiny go at it. But the reality is like, dude, Charlie Kirk is an extreme religious figure.
Yeah.
And the positions that he takes on religion don't hold up. They're not even the best Christian apologist arguments. And he can body college students with it, but he's not going to body like real fucking public intellectual atheists who want to go at him on these topics, right? And so it's like there's constantly this illusion where you see someone ripping apart someone who is uneducated on a topic and then thinking that they are super smart and super educated on the topic as a result of that. Like, I don't need to be that educated on any given topic to rip apart someone who doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All you got to know is how to be aggressive and how to take a position that kind of shuts them down. And you don't need to know that much. And I think that that's what I see with Charlie Kirk a lot. Not that he's not educated, not that he doesn't know a ton, but I don't think that he's anywhere near as good as people think he is.
Yeah. A lot of people in the conservative space are super pro-Israel. Does that concern you at all?
So here's something that is really interesting. The Israel-Palestine conflict is quite literally the only issue in global discourse that I have not been able to find my footing on.
Really?
Yeah, dude, and obviously I've went and looked, like, you know, after October 7th and everything that followed it, it was an atrocity on both sides. And I have gone looking for where I sit and I don't know how to come to a conclusion. It's that nuanced. It's that challenging because there's just so much there. There's so much there. And you can condemn actions of both sides to an extreme degree. And like, I don't know what the solution is over there. That's probably one of the most important issues in the world right now. Yeah. And we need some of the brightest minds in the world looking at that, mediating that, and figuring out how to solve that issue over there because it's a hard one. Most of these issues that we're dealing with in America in the crazy fucking Trump administration aren't that fucking hard. But that one is really hard.
Yeah. Respect for you for admitting that because a lot of people would just take a side. And
yeah, I'm just not going to take positions that like I try to match my level of conviction with like the perceived level of education that I have. Obviously, I could be wrong. Like there could be a depth of knowledge that I didn't know existed on a topic that I could get to, but I'm not going to take crazy aggressive positions on something that I don't have a high level of confidence that I can do so from a place of integrity.
Yeah.
And like, that's what makes me fucking good at this shit. That's what makes me good at arguing that this shit is because if I'm going to fucking come at a topic, you better believe I fucking know what I'm talking about. And if I don't, I'm going to defer to someone who does. And that is how good intellectual discourse happens. How bad intellectual discourse happens is when you get a bunch of fucking idiots who don't know shit telling themselves and everyone else that they do know shit. It's ridiculous. It is very obviously no way to make progress, but people will do it for the sake of being right, to service their ego, and it is 100% a self-centered endeavor. And that is just not a way to operate. Like, we should literally be trying to maximize the benefit and well-being of as many people as we can. And that does not mean to say that, like, I'm a total utilitarian. I think utilitarianism breaks pretty quickly, and I think it's okay to treat myself with shit, right? But it's like, there's a limit to how much I can fucking treat myself. Like, I don't know how you couldn't want to help other people. Like, if you ever help someone in need, like, the feeling is fucking incredible, even if you just do it for you, but there's good byproduct.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, people doing what they do and how they think about things and failing to educate themselves, it does nothing but hurt people. People are so fucked up and self-centered and refuse to look at how their actions have any consequence on anyone else. And it's fucking ridiculous, dude. It's why I've been so fucking aggressive online, is because it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And it's snowballing.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. What about the other war? Have you chosen a side? How do you think Trump's been handling stuff with Zelensky?
So look, I think the interview coming out of the White House the other day with Zelensky was a terrible idea. Even if they were battling like that, we shouldn't have put that on the public stage, and it's really fucking obvious that Trump is just angling for Putin right now. You know what I mean? Like, dude, you cannot take the position that Zelensky and Ukraine asked for Russia to invade them, that it was their fault. That's like blaming a victim. You know what I mean? Like, that's absurd. That is absurd. And to literally try to justify the actions of, like, one of the most ruthless and aggressive dictators in the world is insane to me. It's just ridiculous. And clearly they are working on something together. All Trump has been doing is, like, doing his bidding. And I think that is a tremendous problem. And I think that Zelensky has done a ton of things in working with other countries in the world and taken tons of plays to, like, try to set things up the right way and like really try to fucking do good inside of what he's done. And I think that anyone who, like, opposes Ukraine, like, really doesn't understand what they're saying. Like, you have a country who was just invaded by one of the most powerful countries in the world, and you're like, yeah, that sounds fucking great. Totally unprovoked. All they wanted was sovereignty. All they wanted was to be their own little country. And Russia's like, no, we're this huge, powerful country with all the money in the fucking world. But now, fuck you, we don't even want you to have that. But what people don't understand, too, is that's the first step in moving further. Like, people didn't think that Hitler was going to move past Poland.
Yeah.
That was the thing. They were like, he'll stop at Poland, right? That's not what these fucking guys do. They're maniacs. They're maniacs for power. And if they are willing to invade a country and try to topple a government, you bet your ass they will keep going. Once they learn they can do it once, it's a fucking high for them. They're not going to stop. They want it all.
Yeah. I will say it didn't seem like Zelensky wanted to stop the war anytime soon, though.
But dude, imagine, like, okay, and so let me say this, right? You say it seems like Zelensky doesn't want to stop the war.
Yeah.
And maybe in a vacuum, there are some arguments for that based on his actions. But I think it's important to consider the context leading up to it, right? Number one, they've been getting abused for 2 years now?
Yeah.
By Russia. They've been begging for aid, and the Biden administration gave it to them, and it wasn't as much as everybody thought it was. And a lot of times it was old military equipment, right, not fucking cash. And he's been getting abused for 2 years. He's been begging for aid because they don't have it. They're a small country.
Yeah.
And America carries a role in the UN and as a global power where we help people. And I think that that's the right move. I think that's a good move. And I think that we should have a huge budget for foreign aid. And so he's been begging for this shit, having to fight for it. You have the American people literally complaining about it every fucking day. And then he comes to the United States to try to make a deal or put together, foster some sort of positive relationship to maybe stop the situation happening to his people. And then he comes in and he gets attacked by fucking Trump and JD Vance who are doing Putin's bidding. It's like, how are you not going to be pissed and fucking pop off? How are you not going to, like, what do you want him to roll over? Like, fuck no.
Yeah.
He's fighting for his country. He's fighting for his people.
I will say Vance kind of instigated it for sure.
Dude, facts.
Yeah, he definitely started that. You said you're in favor of foreign aid, like a lot of foreign aid.
Yeah. And so do I think that America is spending too much on foreign aid? Like, I think that this issue is way overblown. Like, in 2023, the last statistic that I could find, we spent $50 billion on foreign aid. Okay. That is 1% of the annual budget. 1% of the annual budget was spent on foreign aid. Like, are we that fucking selfish that we can't take 1% and help countries in need? I think that's asinine. Okay, like we are a country who is wildly affluent. We have one of the best economies in the world, and we have a responsibility to help some people with that, right? Now, do you think that withholding that 1% of foreign aid is going to solve all our fucking internal problems? Fuck no. It's not going to do anything. 1% is meaningless. And so the position that people take against foreign aid is like, well, hey, we have all sorts of problems here in America. Why don't we focus on those? The reality is, they're probably trying to focus on those, and we're held up by fucking bureaucracy and fucked up partisan conflicts, not by the amount of money that we have. There's enough money going around to solve the issues that we have in this country. There is enough money going around to solve healthcare in this country. But the reality is, elites, the Republican Party, all they do is funnel money up to the top. Okay? I love money. I love making money, right? But I also really fucking love people. And the people who are making enormous amounts of money don't love people. They don't fucking care. Okay? You could literally take the 5 richest people in America, take away 5% of their income, right? You could solve almost all of the world's problems with that. Take 5% of their net worth. And guess what? Is their life going to change even one little bit?
Not at all.
Nothing about their lifestyle will change. And so that is what I'm saying. Like, we should be concerned about shit like that. We should be honestly asking better questions around what should we do about people who have 50 to 100 to 200 to 300 billion dollars, and stop complaining about the fucking 1% of the annual budget that got shipped to helping the world escape hunger and fucking escape hunger, disease, like have no electricity, no access to education, no infrastructure. They fucking shit on the ground. Like, come on.
Yeah, when you
There are people out there who fucking shit on the ground. And you won't give up 1% of the annual budget? Fuck you.
Yeah, when you put it that way, I didn't know it was only 1%. That's pretty crazy.
It's 1%.
I don't think a lot of people know that.
And instead of complaining about fucking foreign aid, why don't you worry about the $800 billion defense budget? Do we really need an $800 billion defense budget? No, we don't. And even if you wanted to do that, even if you wanted to spend that much on defense, there's a better way to do it. Because not every year, when we're not in war times, are we going to be spending $800 billion on fucking wars that don't exist. And so what would be better, because here's what happens when you look at individual government bases and where this stuff gets distributed, okay? So every single military base and department in government, what they do is at the end of the year, if they don't spend all of their budget, their budget's going to get dropped because people,
cut, right?
Yeah, and it gets cut. And so what they do is then they just frivolously spend up to the budget. What would be better to do is to say, hey, let's actually look at what overage was there, and maybe we can decide if we want to keep some back, put it away for when actual war times come. And if not, let's choose a healthy percentage of it to distribute to fucking social programs and other things that need money. But no, they're all just so concerned with themselves and their own little base and the fucking budget there. And people are complaining about $50 billion in foreign aid that actually goes and does something, but they're not worrying about the fucking $800 billion defense budget that gets spent on fucking mouse pads and t-shirts.
Dude, I'm actually with you on this because I've got friends in the military. They would say the day before the budget would get announced, they would go out and use all the remaining ammo and just fire it in the air.
Dude, yeah, like, why isn't Doge looking at that?
Yeah. Or else if they didn't do that, their budget would have been cut. Correct. They had leftover inventory.
Yeah. And they're like, you don't need this. Yeah. Right. And so tell me why Doge, people who are supposed to be optimizing for government efficiency are toppling entire government departments, ripping thousands of jobs away from Americans who had long careers, 20, 30 years spent in these jobs. Why are we taking their fucking jobs away? And instead, not looking at an $800 billion defense budget where literally they are wasting shit tons of money, blowing ammo in the air, spending ridiculous amounts on shit that doesn't even get used. Why are we not looking at that for efficiency? That is the largest goddamn budget in the world. The Pentagon fails their fucking audit every fucking year, and Doge isn't looking at any of that. And so do they care about efficiency? Do they actually? Or are they just pushing whatever it is that they want to do? They're toppling government agencies so that they can have control over those initiatives. What happened? Elon Musk guts the FAA, guts a ton of different shit. And now what? Starlink gets a huge FAA contract.
Wow.
Massive.
That's crazy.
Right? And so tell me that guy is operating with the interest of the American people in mind. It's bullshit because he's not looking at the defense budget. He's not looking at where there's probably the most inefficiency. and he's only doing shit that can benefit him.
Let me ask you this, because you're a top 1% income earner. What do you think about the IRS? You hear Trump saying he wants to get rid of it completely.
Look, like in a vacuum, would I want the IRS to not exist and not pay taxes? 100%. Like, I don't want to pay any fucking taxes, but the reality is that's a terrible idea. We need income. That is the income of the largest organization in the world. The American government is the largest organization in the world. They need income, and we need taxes for income. Okay. Do I think that like taxes are a problem? No, I don't. Like, I would pay more in taxes if I was confident in how it was being spent.
Same.
I would legitimately pay more in taxes if I was confident in how it was being spent. But the answer is not ripping taxes away and replacing it with tariffs, which are not a direct mechanism for earning money. You think you're going to make up the entire fucking annual budget in tariffs that don't generate money? It's not how they work.
Yeah. Because right now they collect $5 billion in taxes, right, every year.
I don't know what the number is, but it's a fucking lot.
Yeah.
Literally taking the income tax away is not going to do anything positive. All it's going to do is widen the gap.
So do you believe in taxing the rich even more as long as we can improve how it's spent?
I absolutely would support taxing the rich more if we could better assess how it was spent and have some sort of accountability there. 100%. I would pay more in taxes, and I think that billionaires should pay more in taxes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, look, if I was a billionaire too, like, cool on them for playing the game, right? And if I was a billionaire, I'd probably play the game the same way that they do, minimize my tax liability, but then I would pour an enormous amount into causes that were good.
Yeah.
You know? And I, look, not that a lot of them don't do philanthropic stuff, but really, as a proportion of their income, they don't do enough. I donate a much larger portion of my income than any of them do. And it probably does affect my lifestyle to some extent. And if they donated the portion of their income that I do, it wouldn't affect their lifestyle at all. And so I think that those are the types of questions that should be asked and talked about.
Absolutely.
You know, like if Elon or Bezos or Zuckerberg donated 5% of their net worth and to something that could be distributed well, their life wouldn't change at all. Right. And there's a ton of the rest of us out there doing it, and it probably does affect our life some. You know what I mean? And I think that everybody should be willing to do that.
Absolutely. Do you think RFK's movement, the Maha movement, is a net positive to society?
I don't think that the Maha movement is going to be a net positive to society because of the fact that RFK is running it. RFK is an absolute crank. This dude has made so many errors in how he talks about things. His vaccine bullshit literally cost the lives of like 12 or 14 American Samoans, and like people have died from his misinformation.
Wow.
It is absolutely ridiculous to think that RFK is at all fit to be running any government agency or taking any position at the top of health. And the arguments that people use to support it are asinine. They'll show a picture of like the old, fucking person who was like in charge of the health, and they'll put it next to a picture of RFK with his shirt off, like looking good. And it's like, look, that doesn't mean that he knows anything good about health. It just means that the guy works out and probably eats reasonable food. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean that he's a fucking expert on this. This guy has put out misinformation after misinformation after misinformation on vaccines for years and years and years. And guess what? He also financially benefits when people sue vaccine companies. He comes in, advises on that, helps organize on that, and gets huge payouts. And if you watched in his confirmation, he wasn't willing to forego that money.
He called him out. Yeah.
He has a financial interest in vaccine companies being sued. And this is another one of those absolute positions that people take where they think, hey, this is a great idea. And this guy fucking, coined this term. And so guess what? He must be the guy. And whatever plan his is, great. That's wrong. That is absolutely wrong. And RFK is a fucking crank. He's a charlatan. And he is in this to make money on his fucking lawsuits. He's in this to advance his brand. And the reality is he is not fit for this. The guy has no idea what he is talking about in regards to public health, and he is going to cause problems. There is going to be disease coming back. There is going to be disease rampant. He is trying to fucking take SSRIs away from people.
Yeah.
These are basic drugs with minimal side effects. For almost every single person that takes them has no side effects and only has a net positive. Do you think that you're going to be able to replace SSRIs with meditation? You need to be laughed out of the fucking burn.
Can you and I agree on the COVID vaccine at least?
Potentially. Yeah, it's like the COVID vaccine, I think the way that they approached like pushing that onto the American people was probably wrong. Now, you have to consider what we knew at that time. Like we can look at all the data that we have now and condemn the COVID vaccine, but when you look at the people who were in charge, you have to think about the amount of information they had then.
Right.
We knew nothing. This was a disease that was killing people. It was spreading as fast as anything that we've ever seen. And here was the position that I took at the time, and I think the position holds now. There is going to be a disease in our lifetimes that has the probability or the possibility of wiping out all of humanity. There will be an infectious disease in our lifetime that could do that. And if the world responds the same way as America did to the COVID vaccine, it'll fucking happen.
You think so?
I don't think it's that hard to figure out.
So you think if people deny this future vaccine, like it could potentially happen?
Yeah, I think if you end up with an infectious disease that is deadly enough and spreads fast enough to wipe out the American people, which can happen and probably will happen.
Every 100 years, I think something
Exactly.
happens.
And so everybody was complaining about the fact that this vaccine hadn't been tested enough. It went through as much testing as it fucking could while they had to get it out there, right? It's like, if they waited, number one, if they waited on that testing, they did plenty of testing.
Yeah.
Okay, but maybe not as much testing as they usually would. But if they waited on that testing, as long as everybody wishes they would have, and we were talking about X disease that we're talking about that has the potential to wipe everyone out, they would have been fucking dead. Everybody would have been fucking dead. Or even if they came out with the vaccine and everybody fucking resisted it like they did in America, they would also be dead.
That makes sense. Last question. Do you believe in white privilege?
Yeah, I absolutely believe in white privilege, and I don't think that it's really that hard to fucking understand. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to walk outside and worry about being racially profiled by a cop or anyone else, right? And there are tons of systemic issues that have happened where there's just straight up data. Like, go out there, look, like, you know, African Americans are much less likely to get credit or financing for their businesses or personally. They're much less, like they have much less access to good education and opportunity and like all infrastructure in the places that they live. Like it's just like, this isn't a hard position to take. To think that there's like not some white privilege. Like, dude, like, look, I grew up in a rough environment and my life's been kind of tough, but like the reality is I was a white man in America who was born with the ability to like think and speak. It's like, if you fuck that up, you're fucking idiot. Like, it's just like, dude, like in reality, like this is the easiest, you want the easiest path in America, be born as a white male.
I will say in academics, it definitely, like if I said I was Asian when I applied to colleges,
Yeah, that's going to win.
would have been impossible
Would have been impossible.
to get into the college I wanted to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm half Asian and half white. So I said I'm white on the application because if you're Asian, you gotta have super high grades. That's messed up. It should be based off your GPA and, you know, your SATs.
Yeah, dude. And so it's just like taking the position that there isn't white privilege just shows that you've failed to actually look at any of the data and that you're totally unaware to like the world around you.
Yeah.
Like the reality is like black people are getting pulled over more because they're getting profiled to be some sort of criminal. Like it just fucking happens, you know? And it's just not even like, I almost don't even engage with that. Like basically that's like asking me if like, I think it's possible that the earth is flat. Like, I think it's that ludicrous.
I've had guests say that.
I'm sure.
Brodie, it's been awesome. Any closing comments, man?
Nah, man, fucking crush like everything.
You need to start a pod. Yeah, let's get it going. All right, guys, check them out. See you next time.